What's going on, guys? Welcome to iRace's Garage. Today we're going to be fixing a cracked neck on this Epiphone Les Paul Special. So if this is something that you're interested in, stick around. Okay, so now that we're on the bench, I wanted to show you guys exactly what we're going to be doing here. Like I mentioned in the intro, this has a crack right here on the neck, and it's on both sides of the neck. And this is something that I've noticed is really common with Epiphones and some other budget guitars that don't use premium packaging. When the guitar gets shipped, what you end up with is something hitting the headstock here, and that puts a force that wants the headstock to go this way, and it creates a crack starting right at the nut slot. The nut slot is a known weak point, and if you stress the neck too much, it cracks. The good thing is that string tension holds this thing together. And this is actually a 2022, so this is already almost 4 years old, and it's still in basically quote-unquote perfect playing condition other than the crack. But 99 out of 100 times, this is not just cosmetic, and you can know this by putting a little bit of pressure on the headstock with no strings, and as you can see, that's clearly opening up. Now, there's a lot of different ways to repair this. Some people would prefer wood glue, and in most cases, I would too. However, you need to be able to get the wood glue into that crack, and even with a feeler gauge that's only 3/1000ths, and even when I open this, I can't get the feeler gauge in because of the shape of the crack. So the only way I would be able to get wood glue in would be to thin it, and once you thin it, I don't feel like it's got the same holding strength. Plus, because the string tension holds this closed, I don't feel like you need quite the same level of strength that you would with a normal neck break. So because of those reasons, I'm going to be going with a thin super glue. And I'm going to wick it in right here, and it's going to wick all the way to the bottom, and then we're just going to clamp it up, and we're going to leave it until tomorrow, and we'll come back to it. A couple of things I want to mention before we get started, because once I get going, I'm just going to do it. You want the super glue to get far enough down that it really starts to seep out right down here. Now, because of that, you want to be careful with how you clamp this up, because you don't want to make a mess and get that super glue everywhere. I've got some of these neck rests that I use as clamps, and I've actually wrapped this one in parchment paper because the super glue won't stick to parchment paper. That said, neither does tape, so this isn't staying together real well. But what we're going to do, once we get this glued up, we're going to put this right under here. I've got another block of pretty flexible wood that we're going to put here, and then we're going to use a clamp to clamp it. And that's going to provide enough clamping pressure that while the glue dries, the neck will stay where it belongs. That said, I'm also going to put this Allen key into the truss rod and make sure I can continue to turn that truss rod back and forth while that glue dries. That way we don't accidentally glue the truss rod and make it inoperable. So that's going to be the overall plan. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually execute this plan. I'm not sure how much talking I'm going to be doing because it's really important, especially with super glue, to just get in there, get it done, and get it clamped up before the glue sets it in the wrong position. So now you guys can follow along. Now you can see it bubbling as it wicks in, and it's already wicked all the way down to there. So we're going to get a little bit more as we work this. And now it's time to clamp it up. And it's probably worth mentioning that you want to have this clamp all pre-positioned and ready to go, just like this, so that you're not screwing around while the glue is drying. There. So now we're all clamped up. Now we're going to just make sure that that truss rod continues to turn back and forth. And you can see that the truss rod works nice and smooth. And we're actually in the position where the truss rod has no tension on it, which is why we can wiggle it back and forth. When we go a little bit in each direction, now it can start to tighten. That's the beauty of these dual action truss rods, is that you can actually fix a back bow in these necks too, where you can't do that with a typical Gibson or Fender style truss rod. So now we're just going to leave this be, and hopefully tomorrow we're going to be able to take this apart, and then we're just going to start to address some of the cosmetics. But from a structural standpoint, once this is hardened, we're good to go. All right, so it hasn't actually been a whole day, but I wanted to make a little bit more progress because we've still got more gluing to do, and we might as well have some of this drying. So as you can see, I've got the guitar on its side now, and so the next step is going to be to get some more super glue right on this crack here. And the reason that we're going to want that is simply because we want to make sure that that's filled in completely, so that once we sand it back, we don't feel any of that crack. So now we're just going to go ahead and take our super glue, and we're going to flood this crack with that glue. And we're going to let that harden. Once that hardens, we'll flip it over, and we're going to do the same thing to the other side. All right, so we're back here, and we're on to our next step. Now that we've got the crack glued and we've got glue on top of the side crack, the next step is to take down all that super glue so that we have a nice smooth surface again. Before I start that though, I want to show you just what kind of strength we've gained now that we have this joint glued up. If I push on this headstock now, I can lift the whole guitar with confidence, or rock the whole guitar with confidence, and you can see that we've got plenty of strength in that joint now. And part of the reason I knew we had plenty of strength is because if I flip this over, you can see that my tape actually ended up sticking, getting glued to the back of the neck. And you can see that there's all kinds of glue here. And what that's from is that's all squeeze out from that crack. So we had a tremendous amount of glue get down into this side of this crack. On this side here, we had less of it, but I did see that there was glue residue along this entire crack. So I'm completely confident that we've completely filled that crack with the super glue. You just saw me push on it. It's good and strong. Now it's a matter of taking this down. And this is a part of the process that's going to be quite a bit more time consuming. And this is one of those processes that you really need to know what you're doing in order to have a good result. And I'm not trying to stop anyone from trying it. A budget guitar like this is a great place to start. But ultimately, there are a few techniques that we're going to be using in order to take this down, and none of them are necessarily techniques that are immune from mistakes if you're not experienced with it. So for my tools on this part of the process, we've got a few things. I'm going to be starting with this razor blade in order to take down the bulk of this. Right now it's sitting very proud of the surface, and if I just go at it with sandpaper, it's going to take me a while. So what I'm going to do is take and use my razor blade, and actually we're going to shear off some of these bigger spots. And now we're going to scrape, and we're going to do this until all of these bumps are more or less even with the surface around it. Now, as I had mentioned before, this is an area where you can cause some damage, and you need to be prepared to accept that if you're not real experienced with this process. If I go too far, what's going to happen is I'm going to go through the clear coat, and I'm going to end up getting into bare wood, and you're not really going to recover from that cosmetically. You can certainly sand it out so it feels okay, but it's not going to look as good as it can. So we want to really tread lightly here. And we can keep going with that. I've also got some 320 grit paper on this block, and you can also do some of this. And this is probably a little bit safer method if you're not real confident in what you're doing with the razor blade. If you're taking a lot of material off, you can dip it in some water and do a wet sanding technique. And this doesn't really make the sanding a whole lot better, but what it does do is prevents the paper from plugging, so you're not constantly trying to change paper. So I'm going to just keep going on this, and no sense in having you follow along with every single part of this step, but I will bring you back when we get to the next step. So now we're back. We use the razor blade to take down the highest stuff. We use the block with a somewhat aggressive paper to take down the next batch of it. Now we're going to move to like an 800 grit, and we're going to do this wet. And now we really need to try to get everything smooth, make sure all the bumps are gone, and just make sure that everything feels like there was never a break there. And again, just like before, you can go too far, and if you do, you're going to make things worse. So, gentle touch. I keep doing a little bit, go back to it, and I just want to get until all the bumpiness from that leftover glue is gone, and we don't want to go any further. This area here is already feeling good. This area here still feels like there's a little unevenness, so that's where we're focusing our attention. That's really all it takes on this side. Now on this side you can see, in addition to being able to see the crack, there was actually a little piece of chip out where we lost some finish. Now that's been completely filled with super glue, so you don't feel it, and it's not going to continue to spread, but it is a reminder, but it is a visual reminder of what happened. With such a light color, that's going to be pretty unavoidable. With different finishes, you can make these almost disappear. But now, other than maybe a spot right there, we don't feel anything on this neck at all. So now I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a little bit more effort on that one spot I can feel right here. Beyond that, we just now do the same thing with higher grit sandpapers. I just used 800. I've got 1,000 grit, 1,500, and 2,000 grit that I'm going to go after this with as well. And then we're going to move to a rubbing compound to bring the gloss back. So now we're past the scary part, and we're on to what I consider to be the home stretch. So we finished our sanding all the way up to 2,000 grit. Now one thing you could do is, if you like that satin feel, you can just sand the entire neck with the same sandpaper and leave it right like that with that nice satin feel. But if you want to restore it to that glossy finish, then we're going to follow these next couple of steps. I'm going to take this mirror glaze. This is a brand I prefer, but any sort of a heavy cut or rubbing compound from any brand you prefer will do the job. We're just going to put some on this rag, and we're going to start to go over it. And basically we go until the sound changes. I don't know if my microphone will pick it up, but just like with gritty frets, there's a certain sound when you've got basically a gritty finish. And what this is going to do is take that grit and smooth it away, just like if you were using like a chrome polish on your frets. This is really the same process. You're going to have to do this a bunch of times until you really start to bring that gloss back. But once you've gone through this, you're going to have a gloss that looks just like the original finish. Now if we can take and wipe that away, you can see that that's already enough to have pretty much brought that gloss back. There's a little bit more work to do around here, obviously the other side. And on a light colored guitar like this yellow one, we could stop there, but I'm going to go one step further and use this swirl remover. On a dark guitar like a black or a dark blue guitar, the rubbing compound itself will still leave like micro scratches. It's not really that mirror deep finish. By using the swirl remover, it's going to get rid of those swirls, and it's going to leave you with a perfect finish. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to finish with the rubbing compound, and then I'm going to take the swirl remover to it, and then we can come back. All right, so now we're back, and you can see that this is just as shiny as it ever was when we started, and it feels perfectly smooth. Cosmetically, you can still see the crack, but that's okay. We're not trying to hide it, and on a guitar this affordable, it really doesn't make sense to go through all of the effort to try and hide some of that. You're going to talk about paintwork that's going to exceed the value of the guitar. Functionally, structurally, playability, all going to be perfect from this point on. So now we're just going to take this guitar, we're going to get it strung up. I'm going to go through my usual setup and cleaning process, and she's going to be ready to use. I hope you guys learned something from this. If you have any sort of questions about this repair, by all means put it in the comments. If you want to tell me how bad of a job I did and that you're way better at it, that's cool too. Let me know. If you liked this video, if you learned something, consider liking it and perhaps subscribe. We're going to have a lot more videos like this. In fact, we're going to have more videos with this. I'm going to compare this to my Gibson Les Paul Special. And I'm also going to compare some different bridges on this guitar and see what kind of a difference they might make. So stick around if this is a guitar you're interested in. We'll definitely have more. In the meantime, thank you.